Thank you so much, Mel and everybody else for being here. Can you all hear me okay and see my share screen? Fantastic. Awesome. Uh, Welcome to this crash course in signature gathering. Just an FYI, this is at least 1 hour of information that we are going to go over in 30 minutes. And I'm going to try to do this not just by speaking faster. So my name is Antonio Gisbert. I am the founder of the Direct Democracy Factory, an Oregon nonprofit org. Formerly, I was the chief petitioner of Oregon Rebate that became Mesh 118 in 2024. So before there's a lot to cover, and I want to have some time to answer your questions. So please just go ahead and jump right in. If you have any questions, I cannot see the chat right now, but that might be a good place to ask questions. Or if something's like you really want me to stop, please feel free to raise your hand. I'll see that and I'll attend to you, of course. So in conjunction with our work on SGR 28, we're here to start a companion ballot initiative campaign because we believe that everyone has the right to a healthy environment. We also think that a dual power approach increases our chances of success, sort of like inside-outside game. And moving quickly now gives us more time to finish collecting all our signatures that we might need to collect by July 2, 2026, if in fact the legislative referral doesn't go through. So within 2 weeks, what we want to do is collect and submit between 1,000 and 2,000 sponsorship signatures for an initiative petition version of SJR 28. Before we super dive in, let's go over some quick definitions and terms. For our purposes, signature gathering or collecting or petition circulating mean the same thing. You are the circulator or the signature gatherer and collector. We'll use those terms interchangeably. The petitioner or the signer is the person who signs the petition. And last, a grab line or a buzz phrase is something we're going to talk about later, is something snappy that the petitioner, you and I, will say to grab somebody's attention and stop their feet so that then you or I can ask them to sign the petition. There's a lot of magic here, but the important thing is that this is easier than we probably think it is. A perfectly good grab line is something as simple as, hello friends, are you Oregon voters?
Antonio, on that last bullet, don't you mean, I think you'd have transposed the wrong verb, and you say that the petitioner says to grab somebody, you mean the circulator or signature gatherer collector says to someone.
Thank you, Larry. I stand corrected, and I will make a note. I am super embarrassed.
That's okay.
Thank you. I swear. Okay. Anyway, so far so good. We're slide 5. First mistake. We're fine. Okay. My personal golden rule for signature gathering is that signature gathering is a skill, and it should be fun and a rewarding activity. I personally love collecting signatures, so I do as much as I can. The fact that it is a skill is important. That means that it is something that we can be better or worse at as modulated by practice. Importantly, not to get too far ahead, if signature gathering is not your jam, if it is not fun for you, that's okay. Don't do it. There's plenty of other work to do. Before we go any further, I'd like to do a quick assessment to see how much experience collectively we have signature gathering. So if you don't mind using like sort of raising your physical hand, and maybe I thought of doing like a 1 through 5. So like 1, not a lot of experience, 5, a lot of experience. Can we have a show of hands to see where we are as a group, please?
Means video.
Okay, awesome. Okay, the little emojis hands don't convey a strong experience, and so we'll go with that. So forgive me then if this is too basic, but let's do a quick demo from the top to see what this looks like when I do it. Hi friends, are you Oregon voters? Cool. This will make our fundamental right to a healthy environment enforceable in court. Thank you. Today's date is 05/20/25. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Literally, that's all that signature gathering is, right? If you can do that, you can do this work. And we're done. Just kidding. Let's dive in. Okay, tips and tricks. It really helps to smile. It's actually good for your health too, so you should be smiling anyway. Also particularly effective when you smile before you initiate the conversation. It's important to keep it short and sweet. Signature gathering is not the place to practice your great oratory skills. It is also highly unlikely that somebody that we talk with in May or June 2025 will remember the conversation when they go to vote in November of 2026. You might have heard of deep canvassing. My personal feeling is that this is not the time to do that. So remember that we are not trying to convince anyone. Saying the petition should be enthusiastic. And signature gathering, the issues in the petition should be self-evident to the person signing the petition. So we don't try to convince or barrage somebody with 1,000 facts. We never ever argue. Not saying the petition is perfectly fine. We'll just inform the potential petition signer, answer one or two quick questions if they have it, and then move on. Remember that nothing is personal. I've been called a Nazi communist, which I don't even know what that means. And it's totally okay. It's got nothing to do with me. It's just life. Other tips and tricks. You have to watch petitioners to make sure that they fill out the signature sheet correctly. This is a requirement of law. There's 4 of them. This is one of them. If you're by a place of business, it is a really good idea to ask people on the way out of the store, not on the way into the store. Just trust me on that one. Of course, don't be creepy or do anything that other people might think is weird or wrong. If something feels weird to you, just don't do it. One of the 3 most important things I want to say today is that every mini conversation ends the same way. Thank you very much. Have a great day. You might change that a little bit. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. But I would encourage you to just always have something positive to say at the end. Hell no, I'm not going to sign that petition. Thank you very much. Have a great day. It'll work just as well. And last in this slide, carrying more than one clipboard is really key to happiness and efficiency. Again, petition gathering is a skill. If you want to start off with just one, do so. But I encourage you to graduate up to 2 clipboards as soon as you feel comfortable with it. It makes life a lot better. A bit on the law, do's. This is something like really nice that the Secretary of State does for us, is that they print instructions for circulators and signers or petitioners on the back of the signature sheet. Whenever you get your signature sheets, I encourage you to flip to those and read them. And they might look awfully familiar to what I am saying here, because in fact I copied and pasted from the back of the clip, from the back of the signature sheet. So by law, what you need to do, you need to ask any person who you speak with about signing the petition if they are eligible to sign the petition. Touch more on that later. You technically only have to assess that they are eligible to sign the petition. You have to allow any person to read the full text of the petition. And that sort of makes intuitive sense, right? It'd be kind of weird for me to say, sign this thing, but you cannot read what you're signing. The important thing about that is that we always have to carry at least one paper copy of the full text of the petition when collecting signatures. We also have to personally witness all signatures collected. Please use blue or black ink. And when you're done collecting signatures, you must complete the secret certification at the bottom of the signature sheet. The signature sheets do not have to be full, but you always have to certify the bottom. What are the things that we're not supposed to do? We're not, it is against the law for us to circulate a petition containing a false signature, to make false statements to anyone who signs the petition or requests information about it. Again, that would be weird. We don't do weird things. It would also be against the law to try to obtain a signature of a person who is not qualified to sign the petition. And so then that raises the question, who is qualified to sign the petition? And the answer is an active registered voter. In Oregon, because of motor voter, almost everybody who lives here and is eligible to vote is already registered to vote. That's wonderful service. But the Secretary of State will remove people from the voter rolls after they miss a couple of elections. So if somebody's not sure if they are registered to vote, the easiest way to assess that is to ask them, when was the last time that they returned their ballot? If they really remember voting for Carter, then they're almost certainly no longer an active registered voter. There was kind of like a big election, but less than a year ago. If they have no idea that of that historical event, they're also probably not an active registered voter. The formal answer to the question can be had by going to oregonvotes.gov, and there anybody can put their name and date of birth, check their status, and even update their status on the spot. If they do that on their phone, those changes are effective immediately, and then that person can sign the petition. You're also not allowed to offer money or anything of value to a person who signed the petition. That sort of is obvious, but there's a couple of little test cases to be aware of. For example, if you're collecting signatures at a farmer's market and there's a busker playing music nearby, that's a wonderful thing because it lightens everybody's mood. I would never give the busker $5 and then ask the busker to sign the petition 30 minutes later, because I would hate for somebody to think that I'd be inducing the busker to sign the petition with my $5. So choose whether you're going to ask the busker to sign the petition when they're on break, or whether you're going to give the busker the $5. I would not do both. And this is a little technical at the end, but you are not allowed as a petitioner, as a circulator, you're not allowed to write anything about the signer or the petitioner unless the signer initials after you write in that section of the signature sheet. There's only the only case where this might be an issue is if a circulator is disabled and asks you for help in filling out the signature sheet. I don't think that has ever happened to me, but if it were to happen, as a circulator, you're allowed to enter the person's name, the date, and their address, but then the petitioner must sign their own name. You are never allowed to sign for somebody else. And then they must also initial the 3 pieces of information that you have entered for them. This is an equity and an access issue, so just be aware of it. But again, it almost never happens. Okay. Let's dive into this, what I call the rule of 4s. I call it this because there are 4 steps to a signature gathering process. The petitioner must enter 4 pieces of information, and you, the circulator, must also enter 4 pieces of information to certify each signature sheet. Step 1, as a circulator, you have to start a signature gathering mini conversation. Why mini conversation? I should have explained this before, forgive me. It's mini because we're going to keep it as brief as possible, right? This is not like a big conversation. As I said before, smiling helps, particularly if you smile before you say hello. And a good idea is to prioritize engaging families, couples, and groups of people. This is because that way you can have one conversation that turns into multiple signatures. It is much more efficient. Good timing and body language are important. Just be mindful of that. And remember that the grab line is key. So, hello, friend, are you an Oregon voter? Is a perfectly good grab line. But what might be an even better grab line? Anybody. And you already know this. I just want to make sure that you all are awake. Anybody?
LePage here.
I beg your pardon?
LePage here. I would say, care about the environment. Here's your chance to make it happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Albert. Great response. The response I was looking for was, hello, friends. Are you Oregon voters? And the reason why I was trying to zero in on that response is because of the increased efficiency of asking groups of people, families, couples, that kind of thing. But your response is also good. The grab line is sort of like the trick to being an efficient signature gatherer. And really, it's not so much what you say, but how you say it. So really want to highlight again that smiling and being warm and being human is really important. Speaking of being human, let's acknowledge that the petitioner has acknowledged us. So when we ask them if they're Oregon voters or if they want to get involved in this cause, it's nice to be human in return and say, cool, thanks, awesome, something like that. Then we inform them about the issue, like this will make a fundamental right to a healthy environment enforceable in court. And then we give them the clipboard. There's a bit of an art to the timing of when we hand over the signature sheet. And this will become obvious as you engage in the process. But people normally need 2 to 3 seconds to process what you said to them. So after you inform them about the issue, don't just jam the clipboard in their face. I like to do a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, maybe 3 Mississippi count, and then I offer them the clipboard. You will notice that after you tell people about the issue, they will show agreement in some sort of way. Sometimes people will say, oh, cool, that's easy to understand. Oftentimes, what I see a lot is what I call the Al Pacino, which is something like this, right? And I'm not. Anyway, when you see the Al Pacino offer them the clipboard, they're telling you that yes, they want to sign the petition. You will very rarely have to ask people to sign the petition. They know that you have a clipboard with a petition in your hand and a pen. People who live in Oregon are generally used to signing petitions. It's nothing novel here. Oof, I'm super running low on time. I'm sorry. I should speak more quickly. Step 2, the petitioner gets the clipboard. And as they receive the clipboard, I think that a quick thank you is a nice thing to do. And then it's really important to stop talking and let them sign without distractions. If they have a super cute dog, I'm a dog lover, that's great. That's not the right time to start loving the dog. Particularly if the signer is the first person signing on that sheet, or if it's the same, or if it's the first signature of that day, it's really nice to remind them of the date. It is faster and easier to say the date you want them, the date the way you want them to write it. So for example, I would say for today, 05/20/25. And remember that by law, you have to witness all the signatures collected. So keep an eye on your clipboard and the signers, particularly if you're engaging a group of people and the clipboard is bouncing around from person to person. Make sure that every person who grabs the clipboard, that they have told you that they are Oregon voters. Step 3, they sign the signature sheet, they return the signature sheet to you, and it'll be upside down for you. That's not a problem. You don't have to read what they wrote, but it's really important that you look at the signature sheet to make sure that they entered something in every one of the 4 columns. That's kind of a depiction of what a fictitious signature sheet might look like. You can imagine that if any one of those pieces of information were missing, it would be kind of glaring to your eye. Then instead of there being like 4 really neat columns of handwritten information, there'd be like a gap. You get the clipboard, you look at it very quickly to make sure they filled in everything, and you say, awesome, thank you very much, have a great day. If they do not enter the address, for example, it's really easy to say, oh, can you please add your address for verification purposes by the state? On rare occasions, people will feel that for privacy reasons, they do not want to give you their address. Please, again, we do not argue with people, but please invite them to give you as much of their address as they feel comfortable. At the very least, the zip code. Step 4, as a circulator, you have to certify every sheet. And I like to do this as soon as possible. If it's full or when I am done collecting signatures at the end of the day. The certification date must be on or after every other date on the signature sheet. And then don't forget to turn in your signature sheets, and Mel and Phil will give more instructions about this later on. Okay, we're almost done. Let's put it all together into a sample mini conversation. This is probably going to look to you exactly like what we talked about before, because that's what it is. So I might say, hello friends, are you Oregon voters? You either say yes, or you say yeah, and you stop moving your feet. Then we can start to have a mini conversation. Something as easy as, awesome, this will make our fundamental right to a healthy environment enforceable in court would work. Find however you feel most comfortable talking about this issue. You are all subject matter experts. You care deeply about this. We let the petitioner think for about 2 to 3 seconds, and then we hand them the clipboard. Thank you. You'll see that first they will sign their name. Then you will see that they will move the pen over to the date column, and they will often stop. Get the timing right. And when you do, it looks like ballet. They'll move the pen over, and then you'll say 05, 20, 25. Stop talking at that point in time. Don't distract them. Close out with a thank you very much. Have a great day. This is all that the job requires. Next steps, the campaign, fill and mail, as I mentioned before, will coordinate with all of us with more details. Please want to highlight that the campaign is aiming to collect as many of these 1,000 signatures as we can the weekend of Saturday and Sunday, May 31st and June 1st. If we need more time, we'll go one more week. Also, in between days are perfectly fine. Please also start thinking of good spots to collect signatures. And the way I think of a good spot to collect signatures is where likely supportive Oregon voters might congregate. Farmers markets are obvious spots. Public libraries are great spots. Parks, during summer concerts, churches, co-ops, any one of these public spaces are really good for signature gathering. And having said that, thank you for your attention. I believe that we have about 5 minutes maybe for Q&A. Happy to be your assistance. Thank you.
Dan, Meek, you had a couple of things of note, I thought, in the chat. Maybe you can note those to everybody. And any other observations, Dan?
No, Antonio's correct on all that he says. I just noted in the chat that it's sometimes a good idea, probably always, to have a pen or pens available to give to the signer. Some pens, like the kind that I like, the Uniball Micros, the ink smears when it gets wet, and that can totally ruin the petition. So you need to use regular ballpoint pens, and not the kind of gel pens that have ink that smears. So test your pens before you go out. Write something and smear it with water and see if the ink smears. The other thing you might say to a signer who doesn't want to give his or her address is that you could ask for the street name without the number. Now that would certainly cloak the person's address, actual location, so that the bad guys can't find them. And it might be too much to try to explain to the signer that the Secretary of State uses the address when verifying the validity of the signature. If you've got a somewhat common name, you're Joe Smith, the Secretary of State can use the address information to find you in the state voter file. And you really have to make it as easy as possible for the Secretary of State people to find you. If they have difficulty finding you, they won't find you, and the signature will be marked as invalid. So I don't know, Antonio, if you think that's too complicated a subject to introduce to the signers.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it really depends. One of the things that so for example, I happen to be the only Antonio Gisbert in the state of Oregon who's registered to vote. So like my signature would be like I technically, well, by law, you do not have to provide your address, right? The only legal requirement is the signature. And so in my case, the Secretary of State would find me on the records very easily.
Mhm.
But like Dan said, if it's Joe Smith, they're not going to sort through 3,000 Joe Smiths in the state. One of the things I didn't touch on that I would touch on if we had more time is that to a certain degree, this is a numbers game, right? And so use your common sense and be like, well, the Secretary of State, if you have a very common name, the Secretary of State uses the address to find you in the list. If that is not compelling to the signer, that's okay. Thank you very much. Have a great day, right? There are many more people out there in Oregon than in other words, it's probably not worth it to try to convince the person to give you some address identify information, because you might as well just ask the next person who's walking by. But I like Dan's approach of the street name. You can also do the house number, right? Just the probability of there being two Dan Smiths at 1, 2, 3, whether it's a main or second Ave, is very low. So just any bit of information helps.
I would also say that it's important for the signer to print her name legibly. I don't know if there is a way to get that to happen. That is, Antonio, if you get the sheet back from the signer and you see that most signatures are not legible. You can't tell what the name is from the signature in a lot of cases. And then that means the Secretary of State can't tell what it is either. So the printed name is important because it allows the Secretary of State in many instances to look up the person and verify the signature. But what do you do, Antonio, if you also see that the printed name is illegible? What do you do?
I mean, okay, so if the printer name is completely legible, what I would do is that I would
See, because you're not allowed to write on the sheet. You can't print it yourself. That's what we used
right.
to do. We used to say, "Oh, gee whiz, could we clarify your name and then print, then add the print
So
name?" But
yeah, so what I would
that's too much consistent with democracy. So the legislature changed the law, so you can't write anything on the sheet, even if the name is illegible, you can't clarify it.
So then what I would do, I would ask the person, I would say, okay, hold on a second. Let's try again. Can you please cross out the entire single line, cross out your line and start it and try again right below. And if it's clearly crossed out, a single cross out line, doesn't have to be all jaggedy, that gives an opportunity. That's the way I would do it on the spot. But edge cases, the one thing as well that will happen oftentimes is that people will handwrite their name as their signature the same way. Like if somebody uses what do you say?
Cursive?
Like yeah, or no, not cursive, like all caps, or prints their name. It could be that their signature is actually their printed name, but probably not. And so that would be thrown out as not a signature, but their name printed. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, because an illegible signature combined with an illegible printed name is worth less than nothing. It is affirmatively harmful to your efforts. And I would say even if you can't get the person to do it again and print the name in a way that you can read it, I'd cross out the line anyway.
Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. I am wondering, is it true, people have said, and then they say they don't know for sure, that if there is invalid signatures on a sheet, the whole sheet is invalid, or that's just a rumor?
It's a false. It's false. It's incorrect information.
Okay,
It's not a rumor. Well, it might
thank
also
you.
be a rumor, but it's incorrect. Dan?
However, if the secretary finds any defect in the circulator's signature, then the whole sheet gets thrown out.
Okay,
For example, let's say the signatures on the sheet are all June 1st, and the circulator signs her name, and then the circulator has to date her signature, and the circulator dates her signature May 31st. Okay, all the signatures get tossed out because
Okay.
the circulator, even though it was just a mistake, the circulator signed before the voters signed, so that must be fraud. So the whole sheet gets thrown out.
okay, thank you.
Jeff?
And if something like that happens, then we find the circulator and we say, "Hey, can you please fix this?"
And there are many ways to fix it that doesn't fix it. The Secretary of State throws them out anyway. There are very intricate rules for fixing it that are difficult to follow, actually.
Sounds like a separate training session. Thank you so much, Dan, and keep them coming. Go ahead, Jeff, and then Al.
Sure. So, well, first of all, thank you, Antonio and Dan Meek. Excellent presentation, very valuable. I think one of the examples you showed of the signature sheet had the person write her name in cursive and then do the printed version also in cursive. There you go. I mean, the number third line there.
Yeah.
So what would one do in a situation like that? Would that be an example where you would cross out the line and have her do it again with the second version, the printed name actually being a printed name, or what?
No, I would not me. I would think that I would definitely not have in this example, which by the way I made on a computer back in 2020, so it's not real. But I would absolutely not have that crossed out. Partly because it doesn't matter if you print your name and then sign, or if you sign and you print your name, right? You're supposed to sign on the first column, but the Secretary of State will look for both. And so for this case, in like line number 3, I feel there's a pretty good chance that one of those two things looks close enough to the real signature. So it's, in my estimation, it would be fine.
Okay.
And what I would say is that legally the only thing that matters about the person is the signature. Technically nothing else is required. Of course, the Secretary of State, the date of the signature is actually not required by law, but the Secretary of State throws out signatures that aren't dated anyway. So what matters is that there is a signature and that the person is identifiable.
Mhm.
So if the signature is legible, if you can tell what the name is, then that's fine. You don't need a printed name also. You just need a legible name.
Thank you.
Al?
Yeah, two things. Number one, just a quick question. Does it make any difference? In other words, let's say I started a petition here, one sheet in Eugene, and then I went to Klamath Falls for the weekend and thought I'd do some more out there. Is it okay to have different counties on the same sheet?
Yes.
That's what I thought. And then in terms of signatures, I was really surprised when I went to the local election office here in Eugene, and I said, well, this is my signature, this is this and everything else. And they said, yes, it is. And they actually showed me records of scans of my signature in the elections division that go into Portland, where I used to live, and everything else. It was amazing. So my sense is, as long as whatever you sign matches up with what they have on file with you, is going to be recognized as a valid signature.
If they can find it.
And so if somebody says, gee, I have no idea what my signature looks like to the Secretary of State, the easiest way to figure out on the spot is to ask them to look at their driver's license or ID card. Because the Secretary of State definitely has your signature on your driver's license.
And currently, about 20% of all registered voters in Oregon, their signature in the voter file is their driver's license signature, because they were automatically registered to vote when they did business at the DMV. And when that is the way that you're registered, and that's basically how almost all new voters are being registered, the Secretary of State just takes the signature from your DMV records. So that is the signature they use. And that's kind of a problem because DMV the signature records aren't very high resolution.
Yeah, and in addition to being low resolution, they're also like with a little like digital pen, so they look totally different than a pen signature.
I didn't know that, because my signature on my driver's license looks like my signature. It looks tiny, a tiny version of my signature, but it does look like it. But I haven't signed anything at DMV for probably 20 years. So if they have a new system using a digital pen, that's really a problem.
Well, I think this is a learning process as we go forward, ideally not violating any laws as we go forward.